franchise recruitment marketing on social media is awful. This one, you're not going to win, I'm afraid.
I find that really concerning.
I said 100% at the beginning, didn't I? Okay, I'm not 100% because there are pockets of brands that do it fantastically.
It's a big mindset shift. You're going from selling something that is pounds to thousands of pounds.
It's a big opportunity. People are spending a lot of time on social media. When I see a really nice video and it starts with a logo fading into focus, logos aren't stopping me on the scroll anytime. Welcome to the Full Disclosure Podcast with me, Ed Purnell, the founder of The Franchise, and my co-host,
Jo Middleton, founder of Franchise Business School.
Each episode, one co-host will make and defend a strong statement around a topic from the franchising industry. This week it's my turn, so let's get on with it. So Jo, this one you're not going to win, I'm afraid. I'm adamant on this one. Franchise recruitment marketing and what I see of it on social media is awful from the franchise industry. There's so much more that we can be doing.
Okay, so you seem quite confident that you're going to win this one.
Yeah,
so I'm a bit scared now.
I'm 100% behind that statement.
I find that really concerning because franchisors are rolling out a business model that they've honed, including the marketing side of that business model to prospective franchisees. So if they don't know how to market, then that's really concerning.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking at it from the point of view that I'm looking every single week at, I create a top 10 for my business franchise. So I look under the hashtags franchise, franchising, franchise opportunities, franchise opportunity, and try and pick out the 10 best from the UK and I include the US as well because there's some content over there. And I've noticed some big differences in the quality between some of the stuff in the US compared to the UK. They tend to educate more than sell. What we do in the UK, I'll give you an example of one post I saw. Are you interested in becoming a franchisee? If you are, click on this link and download our brochure. And I was just, but it was an image of the logo. There was nothing else around it. And to me, that's just a really lazy approach to doing it. And I do see that fairly often. I said 100% at the beginning, didn't I? Okay, I'm not 100% because there are pockets of brands that do it fantastically. Actually, when I think about it, they show their brand, they tell a story, they get creative with how they present the information. It's not just take a photo or just take an image. They create video and things like that around it. But when you're sitting there scrolling through your feed, what's going to stop you? Somebody asking, do you want to be a franchisee? No, not at all. It's going to be something saying, look at the fun our franchisee is having, setting up their business or going through and delivering the service or product, whatever it is. Maybe a little bit talking about the benefits of joining, but just in a different creative way. So I've gone on a big old rant there, haven't I? But
Get off your soapbox. Get off.
But yeah, basically, the vast majority of the posts I see are you interested in becoming a XYZ franchisee? Picture of a logo, picture of the shop, picture of the product, and there's no story behind it. It's not entertaining, engaging, educational, relatable, or inspirational. And that's what I think posts need to be on social media to do well and get your brand more exposure and then bring in those sales messages.
I agree that posts should either be adding value, building credibility, sharing top tips, or the purpose of the post should be to draw attention to the brand with the opportunity to download further information if they want to. But I go back to my point that franchisors have built businesses that they've then rolled out across nationally and globally in many cases. So the systems and processes that they've built in for franchisees to market their businesses in their local areas, it surprises me to hear what you're saying and I don't really have an argument to say that it is good on this one if you've got such compelling sort of evidence that actually they're not doing that with their own brands.
Well, I think what I've experienced and what I've seen is that they've got the passion for their brand, and so they know the kind of structures and put that in there. Can put the posts out there that kind of reflects that. I think when you use the term recruitment, though, or sales, maybe franchise sales, it's almost like they have to flick a switch in their head because it's something completely different, because they're used to recruiting for staff maybe, and that you just stick out an advert and tons of people apply. Yeah, it's not quite the same for franchisee recruitment in my mind. I think you have to show a bit more of the story, build a bit more trust up at that front end. And the final thing is, franchise brands seem to, on the whole, like I say, there are pockets of ones that do this really well, or do the opposite really well. But a lot of the brands will just talk about themselves. We are great. We are looking for this. We've just won an award. Right, which is, sometimes these things are okay to drop in, but you've got to create content that's not what you want to get out of it. It's what the audience
benefits
wants to get. What can the audience get out of it? So, like I say, they're something educational, entertaining, relatable, inspirational, or engaging. Those kinds of posts will then build that audience, build that trust in your brand, so that when you do bring in the more sales-focused messages, it starts to hit home better. But I really don't know many brands at all that are using social media and saying, yeah, we're getting leads and people into our environment and moving them through the process well at all. Like, I've heard brands that use pay-per-click stuff. Yeah. But they've done no build-up work to it in the first place. Yeah. So, and you don't get leads. So yeah. Sorry, I'm
going to go on my soapbox in a minute.
But for me, social media is, like we spoke about in one of the other episodes, the magazines and newspapers of today. It's where most people go to look for their news. It's where they go to learn stuff, find out about different brands, to be entertained. And they've all got their own specific uses. So, it's a big opportunity. People are spending a lot of time on social media. So by not jumping on that and adding to the environment, you're kind of missing out on a big opportunity.
So from a new franchisor's perspective, or a prospective franchisor, so someone who's built the business up themselves and then chosen to franchise it, rather than someone who has bought a business that has been franchised and become the franchisor of a brand, it's a big mindset shift. You're going from selling something that is pounds to thousands of pounds, and you've suddenly got two businesses to juggle quite often. You've got the business that you founded, the original business, and the franchise business as well, with two completely different end users a lot of the time. So your end customers that will buy something for pounds aren't necessarily your ideal franchisees who will buy something for thousands of pounds. So when you say it's a mindset switch almost that franchisors need to activate, in the early days it 100% is, and I do a lot of work around mindset in my franchisor membership, and sales mindset, and the way that you have to sort of get out of your own way to be able to hone your recruitment process, to use social media effectively in your franchise brand. So there is that big mindset shift. And the other point that you touched on there that I'd like to pick up on is that when someone is going to franchise their business, I hear a lot of feedback from people who have been through the process with franchise consultants, and then at the end of the process, they've gone sort of, here you go, your business is franchised, off you go and recruit some franchisees. And they might have provided them with a Discovery Day presentation, or they might have sort of worked with them a bit around who they want to recruit, but they haven't actually left that process with a warm audience of potential ideal franchisees. So I think it's so important because it can take 12 to 18 months to build that know, like, trust and the warm audience to the point where you're going to be able to sell to them and tell them those stories that are going to convert and resonate with them and get them into your sales pipeline. And the more people you've got at the top of that funnel in your warm audience, the more obviously you're going to convert at the bottom. So I think it's really interesting that social media posts aren't good, and I'm going to take your word on that because you've got far more experience of looking.
I would say the majority.
The majority
are either boring, or they're talking about themselves, or it's just a logo, or you know what I mean. There's just not much creativity or thought gone into putting them out there. They just think, I'm just going to post something for the sake of posting it. Like I say, there are pockets of brands out there that are fantastic at what they do. I won't name any, but you'll see them appear in my top 10 fairly regularly because, they're talking to the audience. They're not talking for the sake of talking, and they're not always talking for their benefit.
And do you think that's because the franchisor is still looking at they're not looking at the franchise business as a franchise business in its own right compared to the business they used to run, or why do you think that is?
Yeah, maybe if I think about it, there are individuals who've taken more of a step away from the business. They're not operating the original business. They're thinking about the franchise holistically, aren't they? And they're looking at all the different elements, I guess. So maybe it is easier to switch over. But I think the core thing is when they've set up the first business, they know the problem they're solving. I don't think everybody knows the problem you're solving for franchisees. You're always thinking about
the end user.
How can I build my franchise brand? I want the right person to come on board. I want them to do X, Y, Z. I want them to follow our program. I want to be able to support them this way. It's all I. Whereas the initial conversations and engaging with people in the early days, I think you've got to think about them and what's their problem. And whenever I've done any kind of sales training or LinkedIn training and things like that, I always say you've got to find out what their pain point is. As soon as you understand the pain point of your target candidate, so maybe you create your candidate avatar, franchisee avatar, which if someone doesn't know what that is, it's just who are they, what are their wants and their desires, and what type of business they want to build, what kind of background they come from, how much money do they have, where do they live, all these kinds of things. So once you know that, imagine what their pain point is going to be. And I think it typically boils down to like 4 things, which is usually money is one that people seem to move careers or do something for because they want to increase their earnings. But really, that's one that underpins these other 3. So I think the main one in the franchise world is taking control. So whether that's taking control over the hours that they work, or taking control over the projects that they're working on, or whether or not they're traveling, that's something that a lot of people seem to want. The second one is to make an impact or to have more influence. So that could be giving back to their local community. Perhaps they've made a decent amount of money and now they want to do something for the local community. Or maybe it is, again, kind of that having an influence over the direction of something. It's a bit airy-fairy, but they want to have more influence, basically, or more prestige. So to say that actually I am an accountant status. Yeah, that's the word.
So I feel that it needs to be recognised that it is a separate business completely and marketed as such. When I franchised Dog First Aid, that actually the difference to the end user, the franchisee's customer, was my motivator. In that I knew that by franchising, we'd be able to keep up with demand, protect the quality of the content going out, and to roll it out nationwide to help more people to save dogs' lives ultimately. But what I didn't think about was the difference that it would make so much to franchisees' lives. And I knew the benefits of choosing your own working hours, being your own boss for yourself, not by yourself, all of that kind of thing. But it wasn't until I recruited a vet, and she came on board as a franchisee. And after a few months, she came to me and said, Jo, I was working 80 hours a week in practice and then going home and trying to research cases that were in, and it was breaking me. And actually in the veterinary industry, they've got one of the highest suicide rates in an employment environment. And she said, now I get to still do a couple of days a week locuming and keep my oar in, but I choose what I want to do, and then I get to run my own business that brings me a good revenue on the side. So for her, it had completely changed her life. And now when I look at franchises and the difference that it makes to the franchisee as a business owner in their own right, they've gone, if it's done correctly, they've gone from a 9 to 5 potentially and the rat race to actually being free to pick the kids up from school or go out for lunch with friends or be there for someone who's terminally ill in the family. And it is a life-changing thing, running your own business. I'm not saying it's a walk in the park with the wind blowing in your hair, because we all know that's absolute cobblers. It is that whole sort of highs and lows. The highs are very high, the lows are very low. And with a franchisor, that is exacerbated. But it does surprise me what you're saying about recruitment on social media not being good.
Yeah, so actually that's one area I do see a bit is franchisee stories. The franchising industry, as far as I can see, is really good at writing those stories or taking those videos and things like that. Now, I'm being quite fussy here now when I say it's not very good, but what I will see is a 10-minute interview, let's say video. They'll put that onto social media and it bombs, does nothing. And that's not a good post, because people haven't got the time. They'll see that 10 minutes and go, I'm not going to watch that there. Instead, if they clipped it out, we've all got short time attention spans, right? So clip it out and remove almost all the breaths out of it. It becomes a really short, sharp piece of content that gets the message across really quickly in, let's say 30 seconds. That's a good post. And then the text that goes with it is
the story, the back.
Yeah, you can add a bit more into it. Take a quote from further on down or something like this, rather than going, we're pleased to share this interview with such and such franchisee. You can just be a bit more creative about how it looks and how it sounds, and it doesn't always have to start. That's the other thing that annoys me. When I see a really nice video and it starts with a logo fading, into focus, and then if you look at the timer, it takes 5-6 seconds before the actual video starts. Well, logos aren't stopping me on the scroll anytime. I'll scroll straight past that before I even notice the good content. And I used to do videos like that, and it doesn't work. You've got to start with something interesting, hook people into it. So,
and I guess that boils down to education and learning about current media trends and what's working and what isn't, and educating yourself as a franchisor so you can make sure it works in your franchisee recruitment process, but also so you can pass that education on to your network so that it can work in their local businesses too.
I've won, haven't I? Because
yeah, right.
you can't evidence the other side of it, but I think
you've won by default though, because I can't evidence it because I haven't actually looked in as much detail as you have at franchise recruitment posts on social.
That's what chose it. Yeah.
You just wanted to win one.
To make sure I get at least one. Yeah.
Okay, you can ding the bell.
Yes. Done.
Oh.